and you're live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Setter Tales podcast. I'm Wade Kisner, and this is Thomas Heidenwirth. Together, we hope to bring you some great guests, some great stories, and also share our love for upland hunting, all things dogs, and just the passion that we both share, Thomas and I, for upland hunting over gun dogs. And tonight, we don't have a guest that'll be checking in with us, but we want to take this time to talk more and provide you with some more background about us and who we are. We think that's important to let you know where we come from, where we've been, and where we hope to go in the future with this podcast. And since I'm the elder statesman here on the panel, I think I'll go first and talk a little bit about my experience in getting involved in upland bird hunting. The first comment I want to make is that I have been hunting upland birds longer than Thomas has been alive. I know most of you didn't notice that, but and my hunting experience really began back in the '60s in a place called Bates County, Missouri, and my granddad's farm that he had in Bates County. And I don't know, hopefully some of you in Bates County or in that area may be tuning in and watching, and I hope you are. Uh, but yeah, Bates County is about 50 miles south of Kansas City area, so to speak. And Granddad had a farm there, and typically there would be 3 or 4 coveys of quail that could be found. And when I was pretty young, we would gather down there on opening day of quail season and hunt opening day. And then later on, as the years passed and I got older and able to actually carry a gun and hunt, we would still hunt coveys with Granddad on that farm. And so he had a bird dog, and that's kind of how I learned to hunt behind dogs and the way to work coveys and do those kinds of things. And then later on, after high school, I hunted some more on my own, and then into my college years. But typically, quail hunting was what we grew up doing. That was the bird that we had, and we were about 9 miles from the Kansas line, but I never saw a pheasant until I moved to Iowa, and so it was kind of interesting that we just didn't have them in our area. They weren't that far from us. I mean, you could drive into Kansas and find them, and many guys did, but we were kind of staunch quail guys, and so that's what I grew up on doing. But in 1977, I moved to Iowa to take a job, and that's when I first was introduced to thunder chickens or pheasants, and it was quite a deal. If you recall, in the late '70s and early '80s, I mean, it was boom time in Iowa for pheasants, and so birds were everywhere, and Iowa was the destination place for pheasant hunting at that time, and so that's kind of how I first got involved in hunting a lot of pheasants and kind of got into that as opposed to the quail hunting, and then as things evolved and I was able to get close to retirement from my job in 2008. A friend of mine, Ray Stefani, showed up in my driveway unannounced and had a English setter puppy in his truck and said it was my dog for some reason, and so he ended up with me, and that dog turned out to be a dog we call Sweet Lou. He's been in some videos that we do and that kind of thing, and he just turned 14, so obviously we don't hunt him anymore. But uh, you know, after we got him, we started doing some guiding with some clients, and our interest in setters, increased. And I've hunted like Thomas has over every breed of dog, and I've owned several different breeds, including labs and other kinds of dogs. But right now, English setters are kind of what we're into, and we'll talk a lot about the setter breeds, but also about other breeds of hunting dogs because they're all wonderful, I think. And but everybody has their preference, and as they should. And so we do some guiding currently still with our dogs, and we. 2013, we started a video series called Setter Tales, Sweet Point Setter Tales, and we shot several videos. It was kind of a tough thing to do just because we were, doing it on our own. We were filming it, producing it, assisting in the editing process and basically the travel and logistics and everything. So it was a challenging time, and there aren't a lot of upland shows out there because they're just difficult to do, and everything's moving, and the camera guys have to move. So, but it was fun. We met some really incredible, cool people, and I think along the way with some of our video stuff we were doing is how Thomas and I got acquainted, and he lived, of course, he lives not too far from us, and he's into some setters too, and so we've become friends over the last few years because of our like passion and that kind of thing. So we're still doing a little bit of the video series. We hope to continue that, and we'll talk about some of that as we go forward. And we'll probably have some guests in the future that have we've met along the way, and in some of our travels. So, but currently we are going to be doing the podcast. This is the first one that we've done. We've done some audio ones, but this is the first live stream that we've tried. And so bear with us. We've got a few things that we're going to have to work out, but we'll get better at it. And we've got some really cool guests lined up, I think, that'll be coming on to give us some expertise in various aspects of hunting, and that'll be great. So if you're out there and you have some interest, or you know of somebody that would be a good guest, let us know. Drop us an email or whatever, and go from there. And so I'm going to let Thomas talk a little bit about his experience in growing up hunting and getting involved to the point where he is now, also being a setter man. And so, we'll turn it over to him, and then when we're done with that, hopefully as I understand it, we do have an opportunity to take some questions from some of you out there listening, and then if we can, we'll get to as many of them as we can. But and they may be questions more about what we're doing, what we've done in the past, where we've hunted, issues with dogs, training things. We hope to cover the whole gamut of things, and so fire your questions in if you can, and we'll see what we can do with them. So, Thomas, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you grew up doing?
Well, I appreciate you having me, Wade. Um, Grew up in a small town, Green, Iowa, north central Iowa, we call it. Um, family of farmers. My grandparents started the farming when Grandpa got out of the war, and we had a fertilizer and chemical business. So was always outdoors. If you ask my parents, they pretty much knew that I wasn't in trouble, getting into trouble. I was out hunting. So started at a pretty young age. Dad, he had time when he had time during fall season. We were hunting. He had a couple friends when I was really young that had dogs. We always had a hunting dog. We had coon dogs when I was just really little. Didn't get to go do that a lot just because of my age, but we had a couple farms with some waterways and some grass on them, and we went. And then finally, I think when I was probably old enough to carry a gun, I'd say we drove down to southern Iowa, and I'll never forget. We pulled into this yard, and a bunch of Chesapeake Bay retrievers start running out to us, and they were in the pond swimming around. Not very old, so we got that when I was real young and hunted her quite a bit. And you let her out in town in the yard, she was gone. She wanted to run. She didn't want to be there. But you get her out in the field, get her on the water, and to this day, I still think that was one of the most natural hunting dogs that I've ever had the pleasure of being. My dad tells this story often. We spent a lot of time in the river, and a gas can got away from him. It was empty, and just pointed out there, and the Chesapeake swam out and got it. So um, we did a lot of upland hunting, not a whole lot of waterfowl, and then we did try it a couple times. We just weren't too crazy about it, so we stayed with the pheasants. And once I got a little older, we got to hunting. Started with a 22. I had to carry that, learn how to safely carry a gun. Went to a 410, and I had to kill a bird with that 410, or at least get a good shot on one, knock it down, and then graduated to the 20 gauge. And our local barber is big into the running dogs, and he had pointers and he had setters. And Dad's like, I think it's time we get a pointer. So We got with Mike, and Mike gave us a great deal. And little did I know then what we were getting. Um, I got a direct female out of Tacoma Mountain Sunrise. So anybody that knows anything about English setters has heard of Tacoma Mountain Sunrise. So Candy was really young, and we just hunted and hunted and hunted. And we had her. I think she finally died when she was probably 17 years old. So she lived a really long life. Hunted till she was about 10 or 12, and then she started slowing down. But um, did the lab thing, did the trial thing with some a different trainer, and just ultimately went back to the setters. So have three at home right now. CJ, she's 2.5, and she's kind of my Spitfire, and um, we've hunted a lot. So I moved into two of my property where I'm at now about 2006 and built a pretty nice little kennel. Got 20 acres right where I'm at, so and a lot of public hunting around me. So it's nice to be able to just let the dogs out of the kennel and go hunting, or just let them run. And as far as background, Pheasants Forever, I've been on my local board for 20 years going on this year. So it started early, and I got to attribute that to my dad and his friends to just get me in there and keep me outdoors. And now I'm just trying to pass that on to the next generation.
Yeah, and I also was, still am, involved with the Lynn County Pheasants Forever group. So, we both have, do the same thing in the sense that we understand the need for the conservation programs and keep the resource available. I mentioned earlier that when I first came to Iowa, it was really a boom time in Iowa for pheasants, and then over the years, we lost a lot of CRP ground, and agricultural practices changed a little bit, weather, just all kinds of things were occurring, and for whatever reason, the wild pheasant population really declined. I mean, to the point where there was a couple years in there where I wasn't sure we were ever going to see a wild pheasant again, and so and a lot of guys just quit hunting, and so we're still kind of rebounding from that, as you know, trying to get new young people involved in the sport and trying to get some people that used to do it back in it again, because we do have birds again, and in places where there are habitat, as you mentioned in Iowa, there are a lot of public hunting now available, and I've hunted some of that with you up there around you, and so you got a perfect setup up there. So
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
and I think if I look back, probably around that time I moved to where I'm at now is like 2005, 2006. I remember um, my oldest dog I have in the kennel now was just up and coming, that's ready to go. Let's go hunting, and it took a lot of miles to walk just to see a bird. Um, and now I think the way the weather's been, we've been lucky with the last couple springs. We've had decent, easy winters. Covers changed again. There's a lot of CRP back in the ground. A lot of people are doing food plots, and in the flooding in the spring, a lot of the birds like to nest around creeks and ditches and places where they're not really disturbed a whole lot. A lot of people practice with buffer strips along the edges, and we've been really lucky this spring again. Um, I actually have, I think, three hens just nesting in the ditch by my house. So um, I think it's going to be another great year hunting, and I'm already excited. I was ready to already go once I started seeing birds and the roosters out cackling this spring already, and they're still raising holy heck now. They're still looking for them girls. So,
Oh yeah.
and there's a lot of them. So I'm uh I'm excited to get this podcast rolling, and then in this fall get some stuff out, and maybe get some media for us to you guys to go along. If you can't go with us
Yeah.
personally, you can go along with us on the camera. So
Yeah, a lot of things. You mentioned your dogs, and obviously I've hunted over yours, and you've hunted over mine. And yeah, right now we have Sweet Lou's pretty much retired. I mentioned he was 14, and I haven't really hunted him for a couple of years now. Um, but I do have his offspring, three of his offspring. My son and I do, and so they're basically our guide dogs and our dogs that you will see in a lot of the videos now. At least the newer ones. Major is the male. Duchess is my little Spitfire, and Yeah, she's a lot to keep up with for me. So it's funny because Thomas is used to hunting those kinds of dogs, and for me, I kind of want that dog that's the old guy dog that's kind of out there close and kind of taking his time, and I'm able to keep up with. But CJ and Duchess are like, whew, man. So, but yeah, and I have then my son has a dog out of that same litter that we had with Sweet Lou and a female dog we call Adeline, and Adeline is a beautiful tricolored dog. She's got some Ryman lines that she came from out of West Virginia, but she has been a great hunting dog, and she had 9 pups back in 2016, and we kept 3 of those out of that litter, and basically they're our main guide dogs that we use when we do client hunts and that kind of thing. And if we go and shoot videos, it'd pretty much be Major, Darby, Duchess, and then whoever we're with, we usually have their dogs, and we just like to see other dogs perform and how they perform and watch the dogs work together, because to me that's where the poetry is not so much in the hunting side of it, but watching the dogs do their work, and that's where I get my enjoyment. And now, and I know that Thomas does some guiding also, and one of his passions that he also has is to volunteer his time and use his dogs in a way to benefit organizations and mentor young people that maybe have never had a chance to see a dog hunt in the field and that kind of thing. And so Thomas does a lot of that kind of work with some programs in Iowa. We both volunteer our time for some veterans hunts. We do a heroes hunt every year at Highland Hideaway Hunting down in Riverside, Iowa. We've done that for many years through the Lynn County Pheasants Forever chapter. And so there's a lot of other things we like to do with our dogs. Um, I just get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing other people get to experience a dog hunting birds for the first time. And if you have a young person or an adult for that matter that gets that first rooster over a dog, that's even special too.
Yeah, and you know, back to us hunting together. That's the first time we actually hunted together was on a youth hunt down in Highland,
Yes,
and
that's right. That's
so
right.
I've always done it for our pheasants forever, and then you invited me down to do that, and then I guided a para athlete hunt down there as well. So
Yeah.
just seeing people with the disabilities that they were fighting, wheelchairs and had lost limbs, yeah, in war, in the military. We had a couple of people that worked for the forestry service that had some bad accidents, and just be able to share our dogs, for them all to get a bird was really special down there. And I work with outdoor mentors, and did a couple hunts last year. Worked with Wartburg Trap Team, and they're like, "Well, do you want to do some more?" I said, "Yeah, keep them coming." So, counting my Pheasants Forever group that we had this year, I think we had a dozen kids, plus all the ones I did after. I think I got about 25 or so kids out, along with some of their parents. So, um, it is a passion of mine. If I didn't get taken out hunting, um, I probably wouldn't be doing this. So, and it's something I strive for. I have a goal already set for next year for the amount of people I get out, whether it's young adults or full adults. And it's just something that I guess I get a kind of a tingle up my back every time I walk in, and especially on the setter when you see that tail flagged up
Oh,
and a little bit of wind, and it's kind of poetic a little bit, and just going out with those dogs and watching them work, and just doing what you want them to do. And with the setters, I prefer them probably a little bit because of that, their personality. I work with Jason Patty with Skyview Setters down in Kansas, and he's really set me up with some nice bloodlines, some nice dogs. We're working on getting some puppies and mixing kind of what we have there, and kind of just bettering the breed to where we want it to be. Um, so yeah, that's
well, we're both kind of in the same way that where we're not puppy mills. We're not cranking out litters to make money, but we'll produce a litter if we think we can improve the next
yep.
generation of the breeding of those two dogs, and it takes time. It takes a lot of research, as you know. You know, you spend a lot of time, and then you find what you think is the right pairing, and then it doesn't happen. And I've been down that road many times with my son where we've thought we bred dogs, but it didn't take for whatever reason, and so. But that's part of the game, and we've all been down there with frozen semen or AI on dogs, or even a natural cover. You know, we've had a couple times where we've had what we thought was was a natural cover a couple times, and it should have produced and it didn't. So you never know, and I guess that's kind of part of that. Even though you've got the right pairing, it may not come out the way you want it to. So you just keep trying.
Yeah, we tried that very thing with the side by side and the vet, and with my dog, my male dog Boomer, and
Yeah, yeah,
your dog, and we
yeah,
thought we had a home run, and
yeah.
it just didn't work out. So
Well, I
there's a
think
lot of pre-excitement,
yeah,
but
I think the first time I met you and your dad was when we were thinking about breeding your
yep,
female, your older female,
yep.
and she was what 8 or 9 at that time, I think.
I think she was 8.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we were going to breed her to Major, and Major wasn't the most experienced guy in the world at the time, and Sugar was not the most cooperative partner either. And so,
No,
yeah, it's what did you call it? Alligator jaws.
alligator.
Yeah, and he kept seeing those alligator jaws coming at him. But
Yep. He
so
we could hear teeth snapping from in the house, like, yeah, I'm not ready, leave me alone. And
we
then
tried.
when it finally come time, okay, I'm ready, come on over. He was too scared to
Yeah, yeah,
even
he was shell shocked by
yeah,
that time.
he'd
And
had
so,
enough.
yeah, thanks for running my dog. Yeah, but yeah, so it's fun, and like you said, if you find the right pairing, and you know the the pedigree stuff, and pedigrees give you a good place to start, but that's the beginning, and then you kind of go from there, and you look for what kind of dog you're really trying to produce. And for me, and where I am now, I'm a little more into close to medium range dogs, and maybe a little taller, a little bigger setter. I know Thomas kind of he's more into the fast moving, little smaller, fireballs, and that cover lots of ground. And with his young legs, he can cover the ground with that dog. For me, I'd rather have that. I want to mosey a little bit. I want to mosey. I'm going to use a Missouri term there. I'm going to mosey down that hill to that point and kill that bird. But so that's kind of part of the fun of it. And as you get older, and you senior guys out there that are still out in the field going after it, man, I pat you on the back, and never give up. I guide a lot of clients who are in their late 70s, and then I've had a couple 80 years olds, and they don't move real fast, but they're out there doing it. And the great thing about hunting pointing dogs is if you can get the birds to hold tight in some cover, you can get those guys up there in time, at least to get them in gun range and get a shot. And so that's always fun too. And I don't mind hunting with those older guys because I move about like they do, so it kind of works out pretty good for us down at the preserve. One of the things, like I said, once we got to know each other and kind of got working back and forth and sharing information, um, we had some guys from Ireland that came in, and we hope to have them on the show here in the future. And the difficulty with that, I hope they're watching right now, but it'd be about 2 o'clock in the morning over there where they are. So I kind of doubt that they're that.
How late are the pubs open?
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, yeah, they they kept the reputation, I guess, if you will, when they got it. It about wore me out. I know that, but anyway, it was kind of funny because when you talk about videos that we were doing, there was a point that Will, my son, who kind of does the producing for us and is producing for us tonight, um, he was telling me that we were getting feedback that there were people watching our videos in over 30 countries, and I just couldn't even imagine that, 30 countries. And for whatever reason, we got a lot of views in Ireland, of all places. And I never really thought of Ireland really being like a hunting, place, but the more I checked into it, and the more I learned about the people that were kind of watching our stuff, and I found out that they do a lot of pheasant hunting and woodcock and snipe, and they're really they do a lot of dog hunting over there. It's a big thing, and so we got kind of familiar with a group of gentlemen from Ireland that hunt English setters, and so we, kind of in conversing back and forth, somehow we decided that hey, if we made a trip to Ireland, we'd be able to hunt, and then that kind of started the ball rolling, and then in January of 2019, myself and Will and a couple other people, my brother-in-law and Dave Dorson from Kinetic Dog Food, we went over there to hunt with these guys, and it was a great experience. It was really interesting to watch their setters and the way they hunt, and we were really blessed to be able to shoot like 4 videos of that kind of hunting. So if you're interested in how they hunt in Ireland versus here, check out some of those videos. But so the deal was that we went over there and hunted with them, and they said, well, next year we will come to Iowa and we'll hunt with you guys. We want to see how your dogs hunt and that type of thing. Well, unfortunately, COVID hit, and that kind of backed things up, and we lost a year. And but this last November of 2021, 4 of those gentlemen came to Iowa, and Thomas got involved in hunting with them. They were here for 4 or 5 days, and we hunted 4 or 5 days, and I don't know if they ever went to bed after the hunting was done. Maybe it was. They did, but I doubt it. But what a great time. Great guys. They had a great time, experiencing the great open vastness of Iowa and the farm fields and that type of thing. I will say that when we went up to your place, your
Yep.
dad's place, what a beautiful piece of ground and the cover. But that had to be one of the coldest days of the year. I mean, the wind had to be whipping, 45 miles an hour. And wow. But so it was a little rough that way, but we ended up doing pretty well with the birds.
Yeah, but really in Iowa, it's windy.
Yeah, that's true.
They always say Minnesota blows and Missouri sucks, so that's why it's so windy in Iowa.
Oh,
But
okay.
sorry if I offend anybody. That's just kind of a saying we have here. But I felt like that was the perfect experience for these guys. We pulled up to the first field. There's a guy outside of town that does a lot of conservation practices, and he's since moved to Colorado, but he has somebody that looks over it, and I kind of gave them the thought, hey, we're bringing some guys up, and he goes, you get one chance a year to hunt this spot. And I know there's birds there. There's always been birds there since I was a kid. And we pulled into the field, and the guys in the truck with me look at me and go, you're going to hunt this? I said, yeah, let's go.
That's kind of what I thought too.
And it's big, tall, heavy cover. And,
Yeah, it
and he
is
goes,
that.
how do the dogs get through that? And I
Oh,
said, as fast as
man.
they can. So I think we dumped 4 or 5 dogs in there, and
Oh, yeah.
we probably
Yeah.
had 6 or 7 guys. We were spread out quite a ways, and this property, I bet we saw 150, 200 birds, and dogs were on point here and on point over there, and birds are getting up between points, and they, they put a lot of lead through the sky, and I think we got like 8 or 9 there, and had a good time, and thanks to my mom and my dad for hosting
Oh, yeah.
hosting lunch, and she filled everybody's bellies up. It kind of rained a little bit. It was a little wet. We kind of had all the seasons in one day, and then we went to our family owned farm, and I
So,
would say we probably saw 200 birds there.
oh, yeah. I
And
mean, when we first got in the field, they were just blowing out of gun range. But I mean, the wind was blowing and they were hitting into the wind and they were just taking off. And even though those were out of gun range, it was just fun to see. I mean, see that many birds in one place getting up like that. That's over the years, that's been rare in Iowa. And so to see that again, that was really cool. Well, then all of a sudden we found out, well, they're not all going out early. Some of them are deciding they're going to, go into stealth mode and they're going to sit tight. And so then we had dogs just, going on point right in front of us. And then the shooting began and then the fun started. And I will say that my only problem I had was, when you're in a line of guys, what do we have, 8 guys maybe?
I think 8. Yep.
Um, sometimes you kind of can. Sometimes you can pick your spot, but your dad, told me, he said, "Hey, Wade, he said I've got these paths kind of mowed in there every now and then, and and so I quickly figured out, okay, I got to shove Thomas over a little bit because I'm going to take this mowed path, by gosh, and the birds are still coming out in front and across, but I'm walking this path, and so that helped out a little bit, but that was kind of funny. And then we were kind of made to turn back, and unfortunately, I found myself between Thomas and my son Travis, who's the same age and shoots like Thomas does. They never miss, and so here I am. I mean, the rooster. I hear rooster, and the bird's is crumpled and on the way down before I even get my gun mounted to my shoulder. And so this went on for a while, and I had a great seat for watching a lot of birds get shot. But so then I'm thinking, gosh, can't you kind of take care of your elders a little bit here? You guys have shot the last, 5 birds in a row. Got to give me at least the first shot, and if I miss, then you can clean up. But when you get out there, these guys are. But I will say that towards the end, they were involved in a very deep conversation about something. I'm not sure what it was. And the dogs were nowhere. They were kind of working outside over by the other hunters, and there didn't happen to be any dogs near us. And we just happened to wild flush a bird a rooster that was in front of us. And in fact, I dang near stepped on him. And so he comes up in front of me, and they're both kind of a little bit somewhat distracted. And that gave me the few seconds I needed to get the edge, and so I was able to shoot that bird out from under both of these guys, and so that was my highlight of the day. And if you remember, after that, I got my rooster, and what did I tell you?
I'm done.
I'm done. I'm going to the truck, and because it was dang cold, but anyway, it was what a fun time, and the guys they really enjoyed it, and they were very gracious, and we had some meals with them and did some stuff with them, and we hope that they come back. But and the point I want to make is that the passion for gun dogs and doing the upland bird hunting that Thomas and I do and our friends do is, you find that to be universal across the world, even, and not only the country but the world. And these guys that are out there doing it in other countries love their dogs just like we do, and it is fun to be able to share kind of information on how they do things and how we do. But the biggest interesting thing was that we had to train them to do, if you recall, was to walk in a straight line. You remember when I told you that? We'd been planning this hunt for, 2 years basically, and so all along I told Thomas, hey, my biggest challenge is going to be find some ground close by, so we don't have to go too far from the Cedar Rapids area, but where we know there's going to be some birds. And so that was his assignment, find a nice hot honey hole where we can get these guys on some birds. And he did come through on that. But over the course of the time, we were talking about these guys and our experience, which was, the way they hunt is everybody walks in what they call a gallery, and when we first got there, like, okay, what? And they pick two guys, it's like if it's Thomas and I and it's our turn to hunt, you go left, I go right, and the handler with the dog is kind of in front of us. The rest of the people in the group just stay behind you, and they're just like the gallery, and they're just in a group and they're just watching. And so then it's just two guys and a bird, and if the bird goes left, Thomas has the shot, and if he goes right, I take it. And then when we're done, we rotate into the gallery, and two other hunters come forward. So it was kind of interesting. And I remember asking the handler, I said, okay, that's all great and everything, but what happens when the bird gets up and goes like that way? And he said, well, you can't shoot it because there are people back there. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I get that. Well, he said, how do you guys do it? I said, well, we just all walk in a straight line like this. And if the bird goes left, and, everybody kind of has their avenue of fire, and if it's in my, area, I take the shot, or the guy next to me or whatever. And if the bird gets up and goes behind us, there ain't anybody behind us. So somebody turns and makes the shot. So when the Ireland guys were here, we kind of had to get them used to, we all walk in a line, and, some of them were dragging behind and some of them were getting ahead, but it was all fun. And towards the end, they were getting pretty good at it.
Yeah, and I could tell, I hunt as often as I can, and I'm not exactly the picture of health, but got my hip fixed, and I was ready to roll, and was in pretty good shape as far as hunting shape. So it's like, come on, guys, we got to keep moving. And they're like, we're gonna walk all the way down there. Yeah, we're gonna, and then we're gonna come back.
Yeah,
So
I was thinking the same thing.
I
But
think most of them by the end of that hunt, they were probably they had their I wouldn't say had their tail between their legs, but
yeah, I
they
think
were probably wore out.
it was pretty quiet in the truck. I
Yeah.
had them all in the truck with me on the way home. We had the big dog trailer on, of course, and so I had to. Well, let's see. Well, there was four of them, and so with me there was five in the truck, and it was pretty quiet. I didn't hear much out of them on the way home, and so yeah, it was a great time, and we hope to do that again. But whenever we can get a chance to uh, experience that or get other people to experience, I will say there were a lot of other great people around the area that helped us out in Lynn County and other places that were very gracious to provide us with opportunity to hunt their ground because of bringing, obviously with these guys coming in, and that was very, very, very helpful because we didn't want to have to, travel for hours just to hunt. So it worked out. It worked out great, and we hope to do it again. So, one of the things on the Ireland trip, and it's on the video, but over there you had to take your own shotgun, because you can't borrow a gun, you can't buy a gun. And they've got some very strict laws on firearms over there, and so with the proper permitting, you were allowed to take a shotgun. Which, man, I've never really traveled with a shotgun on an airplane in the United States, let alone internationally. So I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but yeah, how hard can it be? So we got all the proper permits, and luckily the gentleman, one of our guys that was hunting with us, is a police officer in Ireland, and so he was very helpful to try to get through the permitting that we needed. But so anyway, it came time that we were going to ship. I was going to take a shotgun and hope that it got there, and I had. So then it comes time, you go to the gun cabinet and you go, okay, what gun am I going to take? Well, I don't want to take Grandpa's gun because what if it disappears? Or I don't want to take that gun because that's too nice. You know what? And so there was a gun that I had never shot before, and it was a Benelli Legacy that I won in a raffle, Pheasants Forever raffle, a couple years before that. And I'd never shot it, but it was really it's a beautiful gun. It's very, so I decided, well, I don't have a lot invested in that, and it'll look good on camera. It's a nice gun, so I'll take it, So anyway, I had the hard case with all the TSA locks on it and all that jazz, and I had the copies of the permits in there with the gun, and everything worked great, and we went to Chicago and changed planes internationally and spent 7.5 hours on this flight to Dublin, and we got to Dublin and about 10 o'clock in the morning after flying pretty much all night, and bags all showed up like they were supposed to, and that was it. I'm like, where's my gun at? And they went, and they never put any gun on our plane, and so anyway, I was pretty sure that I'd never see the old Benelli again, but I've got to give credit to the airline and the Irish airline and Aer Lingus, and they did a nice job. They tracked it down to their terminal in Chicago. They have 2 flights a day that come into Dublin, and so it was interesting because we arrived there on a Friday, and I really didn't need the gun until a pheasant hunt that we were going to do on Monday. So I had a couple days, but quite frankly, I gave up hope. And at midnight at the hotel, the phone rings, and it's the guy from the airline in the terminal in Chicago. So of course, it's only 5 o'clock in Chicago, and they're getting ready to ship the next flight is coming out. And so anyway, they had the gun. They found the gun, and he said it's going to be on this next flight. And it was kind of cool because we picked up the gun Monday morning at the airport, and we had to go past the airport to go to this location where we were going to pheasant hunt. And so we picked up the gun, and it was in the case, and put it together. An hour later, I killed 2 pheasants with it in Dundalk, Ireland, and so it was kind of cool that way. So then it was kind of like, well, I guess the gun kind of became the story, at least part of the storyline, and so. So anyway, the gun made it back safely. I still have it. And when Michael, one of our guys who helped us arrange the trip, was here, that was the gun he got to carry while he was in Iowa. And I think he killed multiple pheasants with it,
Yeah,
if I remember.
he was a crack shot. Actually, all of them are pretty
Yeah,
crack
they were.
shots. So, I don't think they have the vast amount of birds as pheasants
No.
that we have. So, you don't want to miss.
I will say that while we were over there, we tried our hand at hunting snipe, and man, that's I don't know if you've ever seen a snipe get up and fly, but there won't be too many of those in my trophy case. I can tell you that. But it was a beautiful country on the bogs, and so we were able to experience that as well. But so I think we have a question coming in, and let's see if we can get to that.
Yeah.
Yes, we have our first question. Todd Edelman asks, "What's been your experience in running your setters with a client that brings a Flushing breed?"
Well, I know Todd, and Todd would probably ask that question. You know, it's kind of a mixed bag, I'll say. I've had that experience many times, and it kind of depends on the dog, because a lot of them dogs are well trained and stay pretty close, and won't really interfere with our pointing dogs. But it just kind of depends, I think, on the situation. But we've had to kind of work through it when we can, and but yeah, it can kind of get kind of crazy, but it just kind of depends on the dog, I think.
Yeah, and a good dog that's going to hold point until that bird flushes. Um, we actually ran a lab with our older setter for years, and it's funny back then before the GPS and everything, we had the beeper collar. So usually a lab kind of worked close, did her own thing away, and it's like I'm not going to try and keep up with that setter. And as soon as that hawk squeal goes off,
Yeah,
you better be watching that lab because she's going in to flush that bird. So
yeah,
we had to stay on the button a little bit and just kind of, hey, stay back. And, and then, and it worked out well because, not all setters are big retrievers. So it was nice to have that combo. Sugar, who, she's 13 now already. And when I run her with my lab, my old lab, Allie, who I lost a couple years ago, um, they were like my little dream team, I call them. So they both worked separate, and the lab didn't really care to hunt. They hunted their own thing. So she was more of an upland dog. Allie was a. I did a lot of duck hunting back then. I live right on a marsh, so I had to. But she would work her own. But if she knew that dog was on point, I'd just bring her to heel or tell her to stick around, whatever I needed to do, and then it was just perfect because it actually talked Sugar into like, hey, that bringing it back's pretty cool. So then I had, she's was full retrieving at a young age, so it works out well. I would say as far as a lab or golden retriever or something like that, when the biggest struggles I had with it was trying to maybe hunt them with like a Springer or if people have English cockers, um, it makes it a little more difficult because they're just hunting and going. Jason Patty, the guy I work with on the breedings and puppies I get from him, he actually, the big thing now was having the little English cockers, but they have them healing at all times. They're not out hunting.
right.
Their sole job is to go in and flush and retrieve. So it works. You just have to make sure you know the dog you're hunting with, and
And as
ensure your dog's going to hold point. Because once your dog stops holding point, when that lab comes, like, well, I better flush it for this dog. You kind of got to stop, pull back a little bit, and either work on your dog pointing and holding, or you need to eliminate having that issue with a flushing type dog. I guess that's how best I can say it.
yeah, it's like all the dogs are different, and when we're client hunting, down at the preserve, a lot of times maybe you've never been in the field with that particular dog before, or maybe even the client before, so you really don't know the level of training, what the dog's experience and that kind of thing. So anyway, it's kind of it could be challenging, but at the same time, like us, people want to have their dog out there in the field, and they want to see their dog hunt, and we try to accommodate that when we can.
Yeah, and if I have somebody that has a flusher, I might bring an older dog that I know that's not going to be influenced, going to do their own thing. So, um, CJ's still a little young. She's just got one really big season on her. She's holding real. If there's a bird there, you can
Yeah.
guarantee she's, she's not going to move. But um, Boomer, my male, he's going on 7. I think you could crash a plane next to him, and if he's got a bird, he's not going to move until that bird flushes. So, but yeah, it can have challenges, but it's fun too. I mean, it doesn't matter. You were talking about how dogs bring us all together, type thing, and it does. And I've traveled the country doing coon hunting and squirrel hunting in competitions from when I think I went to my first one, I was like 14 years old, and I still keep it. I don't do it anymore, but I still keep in touch with them guys. Um, Nobody ever actually knew me by my real name. They knew me by my nickname. And
You want to share that with us?
maybe sometime we will. But it's appropriate. But
Okay.
yeah, they'll still see like, "Oh, you're old and gray now. What happened to you?" And like, well, look at you. But dogs bring us all together, and that's what brought us two together. I think I just sent you a message sometime. Hey, you're in
Yeah.
Iowa, I'm in Iowa, and
Yeah, I
that's
think,
how it did it. And
I
as
think,
long as you get dogs out in the grass and have that fellowship, you can make anything work.
yeah, and but so it's kind of interesting. We've had some times when it's just like most of the time that gets taken care of by the guy that owns the dog or the people that he's hunting with. Usually take care of any kind of rogue dog situation in the field, and that gets kind of handled that way. But like I said, we try to accommodate our clients when we can, and if they want to hunt their dog, we do everything we can to make it work.
Yeah, and
so
as a hunter, you have to be honest with the guy too, and if you feel that it's going to screw up your dog, sometimes you just say, hey, I'm going to go load my dog up and just don't want to have this situation. And there's times people say, hey, can I bring my dog along? Or hey, my buddy's coming, can he bring his dog? And it spooks you a little bit. And I'll say, well, one thing that is my pet peeve is guys yelling and yelling for their dog and no and come and and just that if that's going to affect my dogs too. You just hear somebody yelling, and sometimes they get used to it and just move on. But um, if you're going to take your dogs with somebody else, just be respectful. If you know that dog's going to have some problems and they're going to be yelling, maybe it's time to do a little homework and then do that. But looks like we got another question.
okay.
Yes, Jeffrey Mays writes, are you guys going to do any grouse hunting in the future?
That has been kind of on my bucket list actually. I did get together, went to Leech Lake fishing last fall, and we went and picked up my buddy's boat at a repair shop, and he actually says, "Oh, my wife grouse hunts all the time." So he gave me his card, his number. So if I get that chance, I have a place to go up by there, and she's got some good trails. It's just sometimes it's difficult to, you only have so much time and so much vacation, but grouse is on my hit list.
Yeah, one of the episodes we were looking to do was to expand some of the different bird species that we haven't filmed before. And even though the grouse hunting, like rough grouse hunting up in the wooded areas, can be really challenging to film, it was something that we were hoping to try in the future. And my holdback has always been, whether I'd be able to get through that kind of rough cover now with my decrepit old knees, but I'm willing to give it a try. So
You can drive the truck. I'll do the walking.
well, a buddy of mine said, well, you don't need to go through that brush. He said that we'll go in the brush with the dogs, and you just walk that logging road, and the birds come out there. And I said, well, I could do that. So, but no, we'd hope to do that. We'd really love to get that experience. And there's some other bird species out there that we've had communications with some listeners and some viewers of our videos that have asked us to do some of those things. And if we get a chance to expand setter tails into the next couple of years, we hope to get on the road and hopefully shoot some of those kinds of episodes. So keep us in mind. If you know of opportunities like that, we always like to listen to those. We are, I think, going to have somebody on at some point. Who is a grouse hunter, and they're big into that with the Rough Grouse Society, and talk about what they're doing, because they're kind of the same. They're kind of the the wooded area kind of equivalent to the Pheasants Forever thing that we do here,
Mhm.
where they're trying to protect their resources and maintain their habitat for their birds and that kind of thing. And so, like to learn more about what they're doing and get a chance to do that. And they kind of do that up. There actually used to be, as I understand, some grouse hunting in Iowa, and I think it's a little bit tough to find them up.
Yeah, I think like in the Decorah area up in the hills,
Right.
northeast Iowa. I'm still hearing rumors some prairie chickens up there too,
Really?
and I'm a flatlander, so it'd be tough for me to
Yeah,
go up there and
yeah.
march around the hills. But
I'll take the truck and pick you up down at the end.
yeah,
So
well, I'll
yeah.
probably just roll down the hill. So you
Yeah,
just
so you and
leave the
Travis,
door
you
open.
and Travis can
Yeah,
go
we
on
can get
that.
Travis
Yeah,
up there. So
push some birds down to me. I'll block for you, boys.
that is my dad's favorite saying now. You guys go there, and then I'll go here
Yeah,
and I'll block.
yeah. I used to when that first happened. You know, it's kind of that every upland hunter experiences that sometime in their lifetime. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later. But you know, and you put it in the back of your mind that it's not going to happen and it won't happen. But it'll come the day where your boys or your nephews or somebody you're hunting with that's younger will come up to you on that particular day and go, "Why don't you go down and block?" And I tell you, the first time my son said that to me, I was a little bit insulted. I got to tell you, I thought, well, what do you think? I can't, I can't hack it anymore or whatever. Now I have to admit that before he did that, I had slipped and fallen twice in a ditch, and yeah, it was a little bit ugly, but yeah, I was a little bit insulted. And then I went down to the end of this real thick CRP field. Oh, it's probably 30-acre field or whatever, and I'm standing down there, kind of kind of being sore about it, and kind of am thinking, well, I ought to be in that field. And pretty soon I hear the dogs coming, and then a little bit of the noise of the hunters, coming over the hill. And the next thing I know, I never saw so many roosters flying over me as it's crazy. And I'm just down there blasting away. And so anyway, it gave me a new perspective on that blocking thing.
Yeah.
But you do have to produce, because when the guys come out of the brush, out of that tough cover where they've been pushing them birds to you, you better have something to show them. So looks like we got somebody else that's got a good question for us. So
Yeah, Chad Chase writes, how many different species have you guys hunted behind your dogs?
ooh, well, I have to say not that many. Unfortunately, I wish I could say there were more. We've hunted pheasant certainly and quail, and but we haven't really got into any grouse with our dogs. I have had an opportunity to hunt over some other gentlemen's dogs with some birds, but that's kind of the thing that I think we want to pursue and do a little more of, is to get out west and maybe take on some sharp tails and get into some of those grouse that they have out there. I think that'd really be fun to try that.
Yeah, pheasant and quail has been pretty much for me.
Yeah.
I was gonna try and get up South Dakota and get up into the hills and do uh, some get some pheasants and maybe some sharp tails up there. I got a good tip from a pal that you hunt the hills, the top, and push sharp tails down into pheasant country, and then you kind of get a mixed bag. But we CJ had a small incident with a barbed wire fence,
Mm,
and I missed out on that. And then
yeah.
when I went up to go again, the guy that was going to actually take me around and show me where everything was at, he called and said, "Oh, I'm going to leave tomorrow morning." And he goes, and I heard a thud, and he was actually slipped on the ice and broke all his ribs. So twice I was going to go up there and do that. I have, when I was a kid, we did go on a snipe hunt with an old dog, and that was kind of fun. We just knew there was a bunch of snipe around, and so Dad and I took the Chesapeake, and it was just a flooded ditch and on one of our properties or one of their properties, and shot a few, and I hunted some flooded CRP when Boomer was young that we have, and it just must have been perfect time for woodcocks coming through. And I kept
Yeah.
wondering, what is he pointing out there in the water? And I finally thought, well, he's doing his job. I better go to him. And there was woodcock out there. So I didn't shoot any, but the experience was fun. And they get up and fly a couple hundred yards and go back at them. So, but yeah, definitely more on the list.
Yeah, well, and the challenge for us is that to get into those other species, it does require travel. So you got to be willing to, to do a little cross country trip and get out on the road. And then sometimes with a lot of guys, that's tough to do. And until until I retired, it was almost impossible for
Yeah.
me to get away for that period of time. But, now that I'm, trying to run dogs and hunt birds full time, then maybe I can make that a part of the thing in the future, hopefully. So yeah, keep us in mind. We'd like to try to get out there. Do have a couple opportunities maybe in Montana and in the future, and we'll see how that all pans out. But yeah, it's a good challenge to try to get the dogs on some different birds and that kind of thing. So
And the transitions I think is usually pretty easy. From what I have kind of seen. Um, I don't know if they all smell the same or if the dog just knows you got your orange on and you got your gun, that whatever the first bird they smell is what to point. And
yeah,
it's astonishing what those dogs figure out in such a short time. And they learn good habits just as fast as they learn bad habits. So it's going to be a challenge
well,
for anything
yeah,
we do.
because we had talked about going out there to North Dakota this last December,
Hmm.
and the weather got ugly,
Yeah.
and you had some other issues that came up that prevented you from being able to get away from work and that kind of thing. But maybe we'll get to do that. Yeah, I kind of pick my battles, I guess, so to speak, right now. And I kind of kill my birds early and go to the truck if I
Yeah.
can.
Just wait for me on the other end. I'll give you a GPS collar so
Yeah.
you
You
know
know,
where
and
I'm at. And
it is fun to see how the birds react to those different kinds of species,
yeah,
though, and whether now my dogs hadn't been on quail forever, and when we hit the first quail, it was,
yeah,
I mean, it was like, and that was the interesting thing because up here you're going, well, it's got to be another rooster. I mean, what else could it be? And then you walk into a covey of 30, quail that buzz everywhere, and it catches you a little bit by surprise. But yeah, we hope to do that a little bit more of that. And so with the podcast, we hope to explore some of those different kinds of things and talk to guys that hunt those birds and kind of learn a little more about how what's specific about those birds and how you hunt them and where you're going to find them and what kind of dogs you're using to do that. And don't have to be setters. I mean, like I said, we hunt with guys that have all kinds of different breeds, and we used to own other breeds, but everybody kind of has their preference, and unfortunately, we're kind of addicted to English setters right now. But
and Chad, who just asked a question, he's a trainer friend of mine, and he's big in the Brittany's, and he hunts a lot of places. He hunts hard, and I know he's got a little setter there right now, and
yeah,
I think he even said he was kind of enjoying her. So,
well,
but
don't
but I don't want to hurt his feelings if
yeah, be
but
careful. You might go off the deep end. Gotta be careful. So
did we have another question or a shout out that I saw pop up on the screen?
Yeah, earlier we had Jeffrey Mays just checking in saying, hello, guys.
Hi
Oh,
Jeff, thanks for
yeah.
watching.
yeah, I know that we see a lot of Jeff kind of on our videos and kind of checking in and following our stuff that we're doing, and we really appreciate that. Like I said, COVID has kind of been a strange thing for all of us, and we're trying to kind of rebound from that whole thing. And we've kind of been in mothballs for a year and a half, and we're trying to get back into doing videoing and podcasting and that kind of thing. So yeah, let us know what you think. I mean, tonight was just an opportunity for Thomas and I to kind of introduce ourselves, for you to get to kind of know who we are and what we have done in the past, and a little bit about our dogs. But you can find out more about us if you wish on our websites, and ours is sweetpointsetters.com, and yours
And
is
then Big Marsh Angler Setters
yeah,
on Facebook.
yeah. So those are a couple places you can check out, and we're going to be doing these very frequently. Depending on interest, whether we'll be doing at least every couple of weeks, but we might do them more frequently
Yep.
because we do have some guests that are very interested in coming on, and quite frankly, I'm so eager to talk to these people that I can't wait to get them on.
Yeah,
So,
and I've been searching the net and just kind of asking around on different websites and forums, asking for guests. So if anybody has any idea of somebody you'd like to have us have on here, we actually got a camera that we're going to send out. They can hook up to their computer with a microphone, so it's really good, and have a series of questions, and then we'll actually bring the audience
yeah,
in to
we'll
ask
try
some
to
questions for them too. So
we'll try to make it as simple and easy as we can, but at the same time, make sure that we have the good audio and some good visual things that makes for a good podcast for everybody to watch. And if we're going to use your time, we want to make sure that it's productive and we get a good show out of it. So, like I said, we really appreciate everybody that's tuned in tonight, and we hope that you enjoyed just listening to some of the things we had to talk about. And Thomas, it's been a pleasure. And
Yeah, thank
know,
you. And,
we'll,
and you'll be able to go back and listen to these on pretty much about every major podcast. So anything you use, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything
Yeah,
like that,
and
well,
as we're-
YouTube, everything. So
as we're going out, I want to make a shout out also to my nephew and my brother who made our signs, so keep them in mind too. And we go forward, and we'll have some more of their stuff here that we'll show off as in future shows. So
Kisner Woodworks in Belton, Missouri.
Kisner Woodworks in Belton, Missouri. Yes, sir. So anyway, thank you very much.
we'll see you next time.